Howard gets it in, but it's knocked away by Lexie Hull. Hull with the steal. And the Indiana Fever, beset by major injuries all year long, are on the doorstep of making the semifinals.
Let's call this game exactly what it was, a gut check challenge of the highest order. It was win or go home. 6 players down, simmering with rage from officiating controversies, and operating with absolutely zero margin for error. Could the Indiana Fever absorb all of that heat and deliver? They just answered that question with a resounding roar in Game 3 of the WNBA playoffs against the Atlanta Dream, with Kelsey Mitchell relentlessly attacking late, Aliyah Boston grinding it out in the paint, and Lexie Hull making the single biggest play of her life. This team met the challenge head on and has now advanced to the semifinals for the very first time since 2015. So here's the real question. Was this a one-time desperate spark, or was this the definitive moment that cements the Indiana Fever's rise for years to come? Let us know down in the comments below how proud you are of the Indiana Fever. Let's go. Just imagine living through nearly a full decade with no playoff series wins. That kind of suffocating drought doesn't just sit on a stat sheet. It weighs heavily on an entire franchise, on its long-suffering fan base, and on every single player who wears that jersey. The last time the Indiana Fever advanced this far, the legendary Tamika Catchings was still the undisputed heart of the team. Natasha Howard was just beginning her illustrious career, and in a poetic twist of fate, Stephanie White was the one coaching from the sidelines during her very first stint as head coach. That was 2015, and the league looked completely and utterly different. Fast forward to now, and the Fever stepped into a Game 3 that wasn't simply about basketball, it was about history, daring to test them once again.
We've just been through so much this season, giving ourselves another chance in Game 3. Emotions are high.
This is a group that's confidence has really never wavered. This group has continued to show their heart, their character, night in and night out.
I think we all piggyback off each other within our group and our organization.
We've been in every kind of situation you can imagine, and we've been able to find ways to put ourselves in position to win, and this will be no different.
Somebody has to lose and somebody has to win.
What made this particular moment even more pressing and dramatic was the decimated state of their active roster. Just think about this. Caitlin Clark, sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, out. Sydney Colson, unavailable. Chloe Bibby, Ari McDonald, Damaris Dantas, all on the lengthy injury list. That is an absolutely enormous and irreplaceable chunk of experience and scoring power completely stripped away from a team on the brink. Suddenly, this wasn't just another playoff night. It was a do-or-die win-or-go-home elimination game to be fought with a group that had to stretch every last bit of their remaining talent and chemistry just to have a chance to compete. Absolutely no one outside of that locker room was putting their money on them. And yet, in a strange way, that complete vacuum of external expectation ultimately became their greatest advantage. They had no other choice but to fight.
She talked about the desperation before Game 2 on Tuesday. Just how does that carry over into tonight?
Well, I think anytime that you're a win or go home situation, there's desperation. And so it has to carry over. You know, we're in the same situation. Our back is against the wall. We got to come out and we've got to play with that sense of urgency. We've got to play with that hunger. We've got to value every single possession and every single opportunity.
And remember how Game 1 went down? It was a parade of phantom whistles, momentum-killing calls, and a technical foul on their coach. The frustration in that building wasn't hard to spot, even on television. It was glaring. Those players didn't forget. They carried that bitterness and masterfully turned it into fuel. This was about restoring their name after being robbed of a fair shot just nights earlier. Pre-game interviews told the story before a single basket was even made. Kelsey Mitchell looked calm, focused, as if she already knew she'd have to shoulder the scoring load. Aliyah Boston spoke quietly but with a confidence that felt contagious, completely prepared for an inside battle she couldn't shy away from. Facing an Atlanta squad that was fully healthy and riding a wave of home court momentum, the challenge looked completely tilted from the outside. The crowd at Gateway Center Arena was ready to end the Fever's run right there. But here's the thing, Indiana wasn't only staring down the dream, they were staring down a decade's worth of frustration, 6 critical injuries, and the pervasive belief that they just couldn't break through. And in the eye of that storm, they made their choice. They chose fight over fear, which leads to the real question, could single moments from individual players be enough to turn all those years of waiting into a brand new story? The Fever found themselves in the kind of situation that defines entire seasons. Down late in Game 3, surrounded by the intense roar of just under 4,000 Atlanta fans, every possession felt heavier than the one before it. A season's worth of fights, injuries, and doubts had all funneled into those final excruciating minutes, and the crowd was savoring every moment, trying to drag Indiana into a final silent submission. The Fever didn't fold. They turned to the players who had carried them all year, and one by one, people stepped directly into the fire. Kelsey Mitchell was the steady pulse that kept Indiana alive. Atlanta knew they had to crowd her, loading the paint and sending help whenever she touched the ball, yet Mitchell still poured in 24 points. What's remarkable is that 19 of those points came before halftime, showing the kind of explosive burst that keeps a team afloat on the road. Even when the Dream tried to squeeze her lanes, she found ways to contribute elsewhere, with assists, blocks, anything to keep the momentum from falling apart. It wasn't easy scoring through constant defensive pressure, but Mitchell didn't disappear. She simply kept attacking, and her teammates fed off that fierce refusal to back down. Inside the paint, Aaliyah Boston was carving out her own narrative. Matched against Brianna Jones, she absorbed hit after hit in the low post and never once let her composure slip. On paper, Jones had the size advantage, but Boston neutralized it by relying on timing, positioning, and her growing understanding of where to seal her opponent early. 14 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. That stat line only scratches the surface of what she meant in that game. Every rebound came in heavy traffic. Every assist pushed the team toward one more shot they desperately needed. She wasn't just holding her own, she was showing a level of poise well beyond her years while anchoring the middle of an undersized, undermanned lineup. Then there was Natasha Howard, whose value doesn't need flash to shine through. Her hustle added possessions that shouldn't have even existed. Loose balls that seemed destined for the Dream's guards ended up back in Indiana's hands because of Howard's incredible reach and relentless energy. Odyssey Sims brought something different, a level of aggression that Atlanta couldn't fully contain. She drove right at defenders, absorbing contact, knowing each burst into the lane had a chance to swing momentum. 16 points and 8 assists from someone who hadn't been with the roster all season speaks to both her adaptability and her leadership on the fly. For a team that needed composure in hostile territory, Sims supplied both grit and creativity, and you can't overlook Brianna Turner. She might not have been a fixture in every regular season rotation, but on this night, she was indispensable, blocking lanes, contesting shots, and reading movements before they even developed. She stepped in and gave the Fever a backbone when fatigue and foul trouble threatened to undo their rotations. Her reputation as a pro who stays ready came to life right here. She did everything without needing touches, and that selflessness let others shine. Ariel Powers was the spark plug. She only played limited minutes, but those stretches changed Indiana's energy, diving on the floor, fighting through screens, and injecting pace into possessions. She made her teammates raise their level simply by the way she carried herself. It's hard to measure hustle beyond the box score, but what she did was palpable. Players started chattering louder on defense, the bench grew more animated, and the momentum seemed less fragile when she was on the floor. Possession by possession, Indiana clawed its way back into the game. Gateway Center Arena was loud, shrill, and overwhelming, but the Fever matched that noise with an intense focus. They tilted the court with sheer determination, pulling stops together and eking out points from every angle. What was clear by this stage of the game was that they weren't surviving on one superstar. They were piecing together heart, playmaking, defense, and grit from every corner of the roster. And just when it looked like the outcome would come down to single possessions, the stage was set for an unexpected hero, a player who had struggled all night, waiting for her chance, who now had the ball in her hands and history in her grasp. What if your worst shooting night actually became your greatest moment? That was the reality for Lexie Hull in Game 3. For most of the night, she was struggling to get anything to fall. Open looks wouldn't drop, jumpers rimmed out, and every miss seemed to stack on the next one. You could see her fighting the frustration, trying not to show it, but it was clear she just couldn't find her rhythm offensively. For a player who thrives on knocking down shots and spacing the floor, it had to feel like the court was shrinking around her. Still, she kept playing playing hard on the defensive end, waiting for any opportunity to make an impact. With under 30 seconds left, all the frustration of that tough shooting night suddenly had a chance to be erased. The Fever were trailing by a point, the tension filling every second of the shot clock. That's when Lexie Mitchell cut to the hoop with her usual burst and scored a layup, assisted by Aaliyah Boston, making the game a one-possession battle. The Dream struck back, but Indiana refused to fold. On the following trip down, after swinging the ball, Hull got another open look, and this time, she buried a three. It wasn't just a shot, it was a breath of life for her team, and it carried hope into the final stretch, but the game was still far from over. Atlanta set up for an inbound with only 7.4 seconds on the clock. Their season depended on that one possession, one clean pass, one good look, and the Dream could steal everything Indiana had worked for. Everyone in the building expected the ball to land safely in Atlanta's hands, and then, in a split second, Hull read it differently. Watching her defender's eyes, anticipating the angle, she lunged forward with no hesitation. She snatched the ball clean out of the air for a game-saving, series-clinching steal. That single play changed everything. The Fever weren't just hoping to survive anymore. They were headed to the WNBA Semifinals. For the first time since 2015, Odyssey Sims added the final touch by sinking a free throw, but Hull's steal was the moment fans will never forget. What looked like a wasted night of shooting became the defining play of the entire series. Hull's steal wasn't just about basketball instincts. It spoke to a bigger theme that has surrounded this entire Indiana team all year. No excuses. No matter the struggle, you may not score, you may fight through frustration, but when your team needs you, you deliver. That's what Hull did, and that's why her play will be tied forever to ending a decade-long drought. From that steal to the celebration that followed, everything flipped. Indiana was finally back.
Now this one on Lexie Hull got me riled up because this was early on in the game, and this was probably the best defense that Lexie could have played. If you watch this play here, Ryan Howard is going down, Lexie Hull's guarding her, Ryan goes behind her back, Lexie doesn't touch her because she's backpedaling the whole time, she has her hands straight up. Like, this is really good defense that Lexie played here.
Indiana Fever are heading to the semifinals.
Driving to the foul line and the paint, lays it in. Sims crossover left to right, gets into the paint, layup, good.
Inside, Boston. To Jones, throws it up.
No good! Game over! And the Fever are moving on!
Just picture the scene inside the Indiana Fever locker room after that final buzzer sounded. A full decade of waiting, a decade of quiet frustration and persistent questions was finally and violently exercised in a single cathartic moment. Players who had for years carried the heavy scars of losing seasons were suddenly unburdened, their faces lit up with the kind of pure, unadulterated joy you only see from kids. Lexie Mitchell, the team's veteran anchor, was one of the first to spearhead the celebration, grabbing her teammates in a tight, fierce embrace, completely overcome with the raw relief and joy etched across her face. Aaliyah Boston, the young cornerstone, sat for a brief, profound moment with tears welling in her eyes as the full, crushing weight of all that history finally hit her. And then there was Lexie Hull, the night's unlikely hero who had sealed the win, clutching the game ball not like a souvenir, but like a sacred artifact, proudly displaying it for every single camera that swarmed around her. For journeyman veterans like Brianna Turner and Odyssey Sims, who had bounced between different teams and systems, this wasn't just another playoff win. It was a profound affirmation, the ultimate validation that their fight mattered and that their crucial minutes carried the kind of immense value that can shift the trajectory of an entire season.
Attacking from the outside and now the inside. And Mitchell's been quiet for a while. Not anymore. Mitchell over to Boston. Again, the shot clock winding down. Mitchell, tough shot off the bounce to get around Jones.
2 steps behind the three-point line and the dribble handoff for Lexie Mitchell that Aaliyah Boston has to really body up with Bree Jones in that situation.
Tasha Howard slashing in. Sims got around the Ryan Howard reach. to find Natasha Howard.
The court, Odyssey Sims has 7 points, 3 assists. She's looking to attack you.
Odyssey Sims brought something different, aggression that Atlanta couldn't fully contain. She drove right at defenders, absorbing contact, knowing each.
Even the sideline Caitlin Clark, despite missing the actual game, was right in the thick of the celebration. She had spent the entire night on the bench, passionately yelling, waving towels, and pouring every ounce of her energy into every single possession. After the game, she immediately posted on social media in all caps, FEVERSHOW, punctuated by a string of hearts and team colors. For someone who was forced to support her team in street clothes, her raw, unfiltered emotion showed exactly how deeply unified this group had become. Every single player, whether they were on the floor or not, had their fingerprints all over this monumental moment. The locker room didn't look like a team celebrating some lucky break. It looked like a family that had collectively earned it. But the sheer joy of the moment did not erase the harsh reality of what lay ahead. Head coach Stephanie White was quick to remind everyone that this was merely step one. Waiting for them in the next round are the formidable Las Vegas Aces. That means facing Aja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, and a full-blown championship roster with the kind of unforgiving depth that can punish even the slightest of mistakes. And to make matters worse, Aces coach Becky Hammon didn't make the prospect any easier, sending a loud, clear warning shot by declaring they haven't seen the real Aces yet. The fact that the next series is stretched to a best of 5 means Indiana will now have to endure relentless adjustments, sustained punishing runs, and the sheer battle-tested experience of a roster that has been here many times before.
A complete skill set in all that she can do.
It's the first miss for Atlanta as Howard could not get it to go. Odyssey Sims, this is what head coach Stephanie White wants from Odyssey. Gray with 10 points so far. Sims dribbled right into trouble and was able to score and get fouled.
Hands and history in her grasp.
The Indiana Fever is under no illusion about what awaits them. They have weathered a storm of 6 crippling injuries, a barrage of bad whistles, and the suffocating pressure of elimination. Now comes the Titan, the final boss, the team everyone in this league measures themselves against. That is the daunting gauntlet waiting for them in Las Vegas. Indiana's victory was so much more than just advancing a round. This felt like the profound rebirth of an entire franchise that had been chasing the single playoff series win for almost a full decade. 10 long years of waiting ended with a team that simply refused to fold, even while missing 6 of its key players. The Fever just proved unequivocally that raw toughness and an unshakable belief can push a team through obstacles that absolutely should have broken them. Now they move into the semifinals to face the formidable Las Vegas Aces, and as Becky Hammon has already warned, they haven't seen the real Aces yet. But for tonight, Indiana proved that unyielding faith, a relentless fight, and pure resilience can carry a team directly into the history books. We want to know from you. Let us know down in the comments below how proud you are of the Indiana Fever. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.